Hello everyone. Over the last couple of weeks I've spoken to a few people that are interested in Cubase. They've asked me how you can get started very quickly in Cubase and if you can use Cubase like GarageBand, and I've said yes, you can. There obviously are differences, but you can. So even without any prior musical knowledge, you can get started and start composing Cubase, and that's what we're going to look at doing today. Now, one thing you've got to do, obviously, once you've purchased Cubase, is install it. You get a copy protection key, which is like a little memory stick, a little blue memory stick. Make sure that's installed. You plug that in and it's installed when they specify in the setup. And then after you've installed Cubase, make sure you run eLicense and Control Center, which comes with Cubase, to make sure that protection key is updated, because you can run into issues where Cubase won't load. And the reason for being that is Cubase, you're running the latest version of Cubase, but perhaps the copy protection key hasn't been updated, so make sure that's updated and ready to go as well. Okay, Cubase is installed on my computer. I'm just going to double click on that one. We could talk while it's loading. Now, if you want to record audio, you're going to need a audio interface or a sound card. They come in all different shapes and sizes. You can have USB, you can have Firewire, but masses of manufacturers. You can have Focusrite, RME, PreSonus. There's a lot out there. One thing I would say, if you want to record audio and you've got your you've bought an audio interface, is make sure you've installed the drivers. They're called ASIO drivers or ASIO drivers. The drivers are the latest ones, so go on the manufacturer's website and make sure you're using the latest ones. But if you haven't got a sound card, you just want to get started today, plug your headphones into the headphone socket on your PC or Mac, or likewise the PC speakers. Have those in your speaker socket, so the headphone out or whatever, just so you've got some sound. So it's fine just to use the built-in sound card you've got on your computer, no problem at all for today. Okay, I've loaded Cubase for the first time. It's asked me for, well, down the left hand side, this is all information about Steinberg products and whether there's updates, etc. So don't worry about all of these to start with. We're going to look at the right hand side, and again, we're not going to look at these, but these are presets that Cubase has made for you. So if you want a scoring package, something like that, or you want to look at a mastering alone, the Cubase would have made something along there for you. But we're clicking on empty. These here are presets I've made, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make a preset in another video. The other thing I'm going to do with this video is you'll find underneath and down below, you'll find there's a PDF you can download, which will be like a cheat sheet of shortcuts and how I went about making this project. So you could print that out and keep it as well, so it should be a useful tool as we're going through this now. Okay, so I'm clicking on empty because I'm going to start a brand new project. We're going to compose something complete from scratch. I always go for prompt me location. The reason for this is quite a few times I've seen people lose parts of their composition. The reason for this is they've stored more than one composition in one project folder. There's a few ways you can lose information, but there's one way that I know of very quickly, is called the audio pool. An audio pool is where Cubase or a DAW stores all your information. So if you've done 50 guitar takes to get the take right, it will store all of those, even if you're only listening to one. Now, people empty their audio pool to streamline the project, but if you've got different projects in one folder, you could end up deleting something else. So always prompt me for location. Just always follow that rule. So whenever you start a new project, prompt me for location. So we're on empty, prompt me for location, and create. Now, I've got a D drive and a C drive, so a partition drive. If you've only got a C drive or a programs drive, make a new folder in the programs drive, no problem at all. But I've actually made a composition project folder here, and then I'm going to make a new folder in here. I'm going to call this Cubase Try 1. Okay, and then I hit return. So that's my folder now, and then OK. So this is my Cubase blank project, and then what I'm going to do before I do anything is do Control S or File Save. Control S does the same as save, and you see here it's asking me again, so I'm going to call this Try 1. The reason being because it's the first time you've saved it. So now if I go Control S, it will just save to the same place. Okay, now let's have a quick look at what we got in Cubase. Okay, Cubase works in a sort of linear or horizontal fashion, so anything you record will scroll from the left along to the right. Up here is your ruler, so you can actually specify what tracks you want to edit. But you can see here's our bars. So we've got bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you see here, which is really useful actually when we edit, you can see the increments of the bar, so beats. So here's bar 1, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and then onwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on it goes. If you press H, you can actually expand this out to see it. So here we got the beats in the bars, and you can actually see it in more detail. That's great for editing. And so H expands out, that's a useful shortcut. Excuse me. G minimizes down. So if you want to see the whole project, press G, and you can see here I've got bar 1 to 289. So let me just press H to expand that out just a tiny bit so we can see a bit more. Okay, here's your transport bar. You can play, record, stop, loop, which is a useful function, fast forward, rewind, skip to the end, skip back. I'm not too worried about these sections of the transport bar at the moment. Okay, we got your BPM here. Now, what you've got to do is make sure that sync isn't on there, so that's off if you want to change the BPM. So at the moment it's on 120 BPM. You can change this as the project develops, but if you're using audio, it makes it much more difficult. If you're using MIDI, it's fine. It's a lot easier to sort of manipulate the BPM as you go. But if you're going to record audio straight away, have an idea of the BPM in your mind and set that. So at the moment we're at 120. If I wanted to change it to 100, of course you can, no problem, but let's stick to 120. Here's our metronome, so that's metronome on. I'm in 4/4, which is great. And if you can't see the transport bar, it's F2. So F2 makes the transport bar appear or disappear. F2 is a useful tool. If you haven't got the transport bar and you want to see all the project, that's great, because you've got the majority of the transport bar in Cubase along the bottom. If you've got Cubase 8 or lower, I think it's at the top here. At the top here in Cubase 9 onwards, you've got information about your recording session and stuff, but we'll look at that again in more detail later, because I just want to get cracking on recording a composition. Okay, another useful shortcut, F3, brings up your mixer. So you can see here, that's me talking at the moment, and as we import more things, you'll see them appear along this mixer and these controllers, so you can control the fader levels and panning. We'll go into much more detail on this. Excuse me. So F3 makes it disappear. Now, say you haven't had any previous experience with Cubase, but you play the pianos and you've got a USB keyboard. Obviously have your USB keyboard plugged in, and when you play, you should see MIDI information along here. You'll see you've got an input. If you've got Cubase 8 or lower, so anything above Cubase 9, you can have the project running, plug the keyboard in while the project's running, and it'll find it. But unfortunately, if you're Cubase 8 or lower, you're going to have the keyboard plugged in, ready to go before you make the project. Okay, to start a project, so we've got in 120 BPM, we're in 4/4. I'm going to go to Media, and Media Bay. Now, you see here, very useful in Cubase, will give you shortcuts, so I could just go to F5 and do a shortcut for that, but I've shown you go to Media Bay. Okay, in Media Bay, this will show you any information that Cubase, any loops, be it MIDI, audio, or presets that either you've made or imported, or Cubase has come with a package. You can actually find more. So say you've got a sample hard drive just full of samples, you can specify this location here and add it in. That's fine, but at the moment I'm using mainly Cubase sounds. Okay, let's have a look at the top left. So here, oh hold on, I've got my search function on, let's get rid of those. These are categories, so these are what kind of instrument you're looking for. So you could have a bass, brass, chromatic percussion, drums and percussion. So if we went to drums and percussion, you can actually then scroll down and click out to refine your search even further. This is information about each one, but because it's MIDI at the moment, and I'll show you the difference between MIDI and audio. we can set this tempo to whatever we want. So this is the sort of styles, and it's worth looking at that if you're looking, but I find this the most useful. So if I click off drums and percussion and say I was looking for drums, because we're going to start our project with drums. Oh, I haven't spelled that very well, have I? Okay, drum. Here, this defines what kind of file you're going to be looking for. So I can have MIDI files, audio files, MIDI loops, patterns, effects chain presets, but all we're interested in at the moment, because we're just going to write a song from scratch, is MIDI loops and audio loops. If you want to just have it as MIDI, just click off audio loops and it will find purely MIDI files. Now MIDI is this, you see here, it looks like this, these lines, that's MIDI information. MIDI takes slightly longer if you click on it to audition, the reason being it's having to load a sound module or something behind. Okay, so, but let's look at audio as well. So I'm going to click that back on. I've searched for drums, because the search function is very useful. And here, these are audio. So you see this thing here, this symbol represents audio. So if I click on that now, that's an audio loop. Click on it again, it's gone, as long as I'm not too quick on the double click, because if you double click quite quickly, it's going to import into your project. Okay, again, I've got play here, but I've actually got autoplay on. You see here, this is my volume for previewing. If I hover above here, it's saying autoplay, which is what I've had on. That's why whenever I click on something new, it'll autoplay. This is really useful. That's beta line to project. Now, if you're in 120 BPM, and like these we just clicked on are in 86 BPM, you double click on it to put it into your project, it's going to be out of sync. But with that beta line on, it's going to be bang on. It's going to, the algorithm's going to, in Cubase, is going to beat stretch that drum sequence now to 120 BPM. Okay, say we wanted that that one we just clicked on, so and we want this in our Cubase project. It's as simple as double clicking. So it's quite a quick double click, and then we can come out of Media Bay, and there it is. Now you see here, it's set my project from the start of bar 1 to bar 5, so it's a 4-bar loop, and you see how bang on and beat it is because we had that beta line. Now if I want to edit this audio information, this is a really useful shortcut as well. You highlight the bit of information you want to edit, you can press P, and you see now it's set the locators to that part of the project. So now I can put it on a loop, and because I've got to click on the metronome here, you can see it's bang on the beat. So I can take metronome off, just have purely the loop. Okay, so if I press G just to minimize this down a bit as well, say I wanted that drum, but I wanted more than 4 bars of it, it's a simple Control D, and that's a duplicate function, duplicate. So Control D will duplicate. So, and then another function, say I wanted to get rid of them, is the lasso function. That's if you hover somewhere below or above, if you've got information above, you left click, keep left click down, highlight the information you want to get rid of, and hit delete, and you can delete it. So that's lasso. That's quite a useful function as well. Okay, so Control D duplicates. So now you see I've got the loop on, but it's going to go up to end of bar 4 and come back. Remember we said about lasso them all, press P, and now the locators are set now to all of those loops, so it's going to continue across those loops. Okay, so that's audio information. Because we got beta line on in Media Bay, everything we do, we double click on, we audition, we double click on it, adds into the project, will be in time in our project, which is great. Okay, let's look at MIDI information. So again, remember F5 or go to Media Bay. Let's have a look at now, instead of drum, let's have a look at a keyboard. So, and again, I don't want to look at audio information because we looked at audio now, so I'm going to click off audio, and now we've just got our MIDI information. Let me just click on one of these and see what it's like. absolutely fine. So I can double click on there and add it to a project. And again, Control D to duplicate, Control Z to undo, and we've got it in our project. So if I press spacebar now, so very much like GarageBand, it will sync in time, and you can make a project without even having to play a piano. If you are a piano player, or you've got a keyboard in front of you and you want to make your own chords, because we've made that electric, we've chosen that electric piano sound, we've got the loop. It's a simple case of just deleting, by lassoing the information, hitting delete. If you press record now, you generally get 8 clicks as long as you've got pre-count on, and I can show you how to get pre-count. As long as you've got pre-count on, hit record, you'll get 8 clicks in, and you can record using your MIDI piano, no problem at all. So that's the other thing you can do. Okie dokie. Okay, so let me just get back to that. So Control Z, and we've got them back. Now, in my project, I might want bass guitar, I might want keyboards, I might want perhaps some audio, vocal, but if you're using purely MIDI and you want them to be in the same key, because I think you can do that in GarageBand, you can actually specify this in Cubase as well. So it'll give your any of those MIDI loops inside Media Bay continuity, they'll be in the same key. So let me just, actually what I'm going to do here is right click and remove selected tracks. So do I want to do this? Yes I do. And then we're just left with our drums. Now obviously experiment with using Media Bay, but I'm going to show you a really quick trick to making everything in the same key. If you right click in Cubase, you can add all kinds of different tracks, but we're looking down here for a chord track. So let's just click on chord track, add chord track. It's made the track for us in Cubase. Now a right click in Cubase brings up all kinds of different tools. So you've got draw tools, glue, cut, loads of different stuff there, but I want this draw tool. So, and now see, because I've clicked on it, it comes up as a pen. I'm going to go, just expand this out slightly. I'm going to put a chord on bar 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is only the reason I'm doing this. I'm making a chord so Cubase can then sync my Media Bay to work in one specified key. And let's choose a key. Well, C major, there it is. If you want to use Chord Assistant, you want to see how all of this works, by all means check out my earlier videos. I'm just going to go with 2 chords so far because I've specified my key now. We're in C. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to F5 for Media Bay. And you see here, it says link playback to chord track. Now, anything I click on now will be work in the key of C, even if it doesn't sound now. By the time I've double clicked on it, put it in there, can you see that key's changed? And again, if I want to Control D to duplicate that, so it's action. If you don't think that hasn't happened, you can double check in it, double click on it, and you get the piano roll. You can actually see, because we specified the key of C, we got a simple triad in there. Again, if you want to look at how the piano roll works for changing music, for changing notes and stuff, check out my earlier videos. So we got an electric piano. I want to add a bass to this, so I can do the same thing. So I can go to F5 instead of keyboard. I can have a bass. Obviously I'm not going through an auditioning to make sure everything's bang on with this, but simple double click. And can you see how that's synced in? So we're in the same key. It's synced in BPM wise, we're bang on, and on the bar, so I can right click and get scissors. I can even cut sections out. Remember, Control D duplicates. You can colour your tracks to different colours if you want, just by using the colour tool. and therefore you can then create a song in Garage, very similar to you would in GarageBand. But like I say, if you want to add audio tracks to record, you can remember that right click along this left hand side here. You can add an audio track. A mono would be a guitar, a microphone. You can name the track, so if it's going to be a guitar, and have it in there. And you can move these tracks around. If I want that to be at the top, just drag it to the top, change the colour of it as you go. The only other thing I want to look at really quickly before I go, say you wanted to mix this down on my project. Say the project was, let me just minimise this down a bit. Well, here we go. Let me get rid of the last one. Remember what we did with lassoing? So I've just dragged across, I've highlighted all of this drum beat, I've pressed P. Here's my project locators. I want to mix this down to MP3, so I'll listen back on headphones or in the car, whatever. You want to email it to someone. You've set your locator. Now this locator is telling you where the mix down's going to start and where it's going to end. And you could obviously drag that further along if you wanted, so you can do it manually. But if you do the P function on the longest one, and if you want to have a bit of a tail, make it a bar long, the tail. If you find you see it snapping per bar, if you want it in a less of an increment, you see that's called snap there. That's how much you can move things. You can go to beat or quantize, which is this 1/16 of a beat. And again, check out some of my other videos on that. So if I wanted it, so now it's going to mix down from here, slightly longer than bar 9, so I've got a bit of a reverb tail if there's any on there. And I'm simply going to go File, Export, Audio Mixdown. I can call this anything, so mix one of try one, and then I'm going to specify a hard drive and an MP3 file. 196 is quite a good standard of MP3. If it's a really quick email, just a reference, you go to 120 or even lower, but the lower you go, the lesser quality. The higher you go, 320 is very high quality. And again, you can just type that in there, 192, and export. Let's try that export, but don't forget as well, if you want to change levels before you export, one thing I didn't really discuss too much is F3, and that's your mixer, and it says here what you've got. And if I wanted to bring up the electric piano, you can. You've got panning, and you can add effects. Again, look at the earlier videos. I just wanted to look at how you would create a track from start in Cubase. Okay, so I'm going to mix that down now before I go. File, export, audio mix down, mix try one to my desktop. MP3, you can specify if you want higher quality a WAV file, but MP3 is a great way for a quick reference that you can send off and stuff, and then it's just a quick export. You'll actually see it mix it down. That's Cubase taking all those tracks, mixing it down to an MP3. And if now I look on my desktop, there it is, it's made an MP3 for me. Okay, good luck.